Welcome to this week's Single Sales Principle webinar. Today, we're going to talk about writing tenders, bid management, how to optimize your chance of winning those lucrative tenders. So really the question is not to be or not to be, as the great William Shakespeare said, is actually to bid or not to bid. Now that is the question. Why? Because all too often we are going for bids that we had no right of ever winning, wasting time, money and resources. So today is very much just talking you through the 5 key steps of what you need to do to optimize your chance of winning tenders. Now if we look at the 5 steps to bid management, most people would believe that step 4, writing the tender, is the most important step. And that, of course, is where they would be absolutely wrong. No, we don't want to spend most of our time at the writing tender piece. There is so much work that needs to be done first before and after that step to truly maximize your chances. So let's take a look at each step and what we mean by them. So, step 1, this is the capability audit. This is to take a good look at your company and really ask yourself a number of very, very important questions. First of all, are you what we call bid ready? Okay? Are you at the situation now where you have the capability, the expertise, the processes in place to be able to write a successful tender? So very much it's a case of understanding where you are and where you want to be. So you need to look at what are your current bidding processes, who is in your team to submit the submissions, okay? Let's have a look at previous submissions. What worked? What didn't work? The ones that we lost, why did we lose them? The ones that you won, why did you win them? What were the sort of organizations that you were working with? What were they looking for? So we really need to have a good look at our navel, understand what went on before. Let's look at the structure of the company. Let's look at the team, let's look at the processes. Then once we've looked at what went on in the past, we need to have a look at what sort of bids do we want to win. We need to understand who is out there. We need to review the opportunities that are currently being tendered for. We need to review the competition that are also going for those tenders. And then we need to develop an action plan. And the action plan will very much be what do we have to do to go from where we are to where we want to be. So the capability audit, as you can understand, is a massively important stage. Why even bother writing a tender until you absolutely know that you have the capability to be bid fit? So let's move on to stage 2. This is getting bid fit. This is where you are going to go into the gym, where you're going to work out and you can ensure that your company is absolutely ready to deliver a bid. Now, you need to clearly define the procedures in this process for preparing and submitting bids. So, assuming that a bid comes onto your desk, what would be the process, what would be the procedure that your company will go through from start to finish? Now, this will involve creating a bid or no bid criteria. Now, probably the most important part of the whole of the process is understand what you should go for and what you shouldn't go for. So you need to understand what your score you potentially think you will achieve for that particular bid. You know, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the procurement department. If you were them, how would you score yourself? Very much looking at, do you have the expertise? Have you done this sort of work before? Do you qualify for the criteria in terms of your ISO qualifications, in terms of your revenue capabilities, etc.? So do you fit the criteria that is being asked for? And this is where you truly have to look in the mirror, be honest with yourself, and ask yourself, do we have any chance of winning this? And what is our chance? Give yourself a score rating. This is particularly important when we come to step 5, where we start to review the overall process. Then we need to understand, how do we capture this management process? How do we develop a pipeline? So this means, where are you going to get the information from? So there are various bid management companies out there that, providing you give them the criteria, they will give you the sort of bids that you believe that you can win. So how do you gain that information, and where do you put that information? How do you develop the pipeline? How do you know exactly what you're working on, where you need to be? When are the deadlines? What do we need to do to create the process and ensure that we're meeting those deadlines? So that's all absolutely vital. And then, once you've done that, you need to develop exactly, or you, based on the action plan, you need to deliver all of those areas. So if you need to qualify for ISO 9001, okay, then what are you doing about that? If you need to import some expertise, such as associates or buddy along another organisation that does have that experience and qualifications, then you need to go and find them. So step 2 is where you actually start to do the work. Step 1 is where you have a good look to see what your capability is. Step 2 is where you fill the gaps. Step 3, which is preparing the pitch, is where we then start to understand and apply everything that we've learned in step 1 and 2 to an actual tender. So step 1 and step 2, there wasn't even a tender on the table. Step 3 is where we've decided, right, yes, based on step 2, we understand we have a good chance of winning it, so we will now prepare the pitch. And that's very much taken a top level. This is understanding, before you get into the detail of writing the tender, this is understanding, okay, well, what is our strategy here? Have we applied the bid, no bid criteria? What are our USPs? Why do we think they should choose us? We need to preempt any potential customer pricing. Who else do we think will be going for this? What would be their sort of strategy? What would be their pricing strategy? Do we need to outbid them? Or do we think that there are other parts of the tender that we can outcompete them on? And then lastly, we need to understand within the company who's going to actually do all of the work. So we need to start to allocate the tender writing and create the team around that tender writing to ensure that we've given it the best possible shot that we possibly can do. Then on to stage 4. Now stage 4 is then we actually write the tender. And very much there are 4 stages to this. 1, the development, the design, the production, and lastly, submitting the actual tender. Now at each stage along this, it's important that we create a draft and we have people within the company who will then review. It's quite difficult when you're the individual writing a tender, because all too often we can get lost in the detail. So having a constant review process is vital during writing the process. And then lastly, the bit that is often missed out with writing tenders, we need to review what happened. We need to create a constant improvement culture within the company. Okay, so we didn't win. So we didn't win it. But what can we learn from the fact that we didn't win the thing? We need to create a feedback loop. We need to use customer feedback. If you're applying to government tenders, they have to let you know why you didn't win. So have you put all of this information into that feedback loop? Okay. You need to ensure that reviewing your tender management is part of your ISO process, because if it's in there, it has a greater chance of actually happening. So make it as part of your manual, your procedures manual, and then your operation manual should then have a good system to keep on top of that. So there you are. They're the 5 steps to bid management. And as we said before, probably the most important question before you even start writing the tender is, can we win at all? Should we bid for this? So thank you for watching To Bid or Not to Bid, and we look forward to working with you next time.